Good morning and welcome to Connected in Caregiving, our online series to empower those who care for our heroes, memory keepers, and tomorrow's leaders. I'm Mia McNeil, State Director for AARP Tennessee, and I'm glad you've joined us today. We've got a great program today as we explore the unique challenges that come with caring for someone with dementia. Before we jump in and hear from our experts, I wanted to share my appreciation for you taking the time to be with us. I know the demands on your time are many, so I hope this conversation is helpful and valuable. November is National Family Caregivers Month, and AARP just released its Caregiving in the U.S. report, the most comprehensive report on the American family caregiving landscape. Here in Tennessee, we now have more than 1.5 million family caregivers. That's 28% of the state population. And it also revealed that two-thirds of Tennessee's caregivers are between the ages of 35 and 64, meaning most are working full-time jobs. What does this all mean? Well, it means that we must all work together in community to continue to build networks and resources for supporting our caregivers. So, if you'd like to share your caregiving story and experience with us, please let us know in the chat so we can follow up online. And now, I'd like to introduce our first guest, Katrina Kimball from the Alzheimer's Association. Katrina is the program manager for West Tennessee and a passionate wellness advocate, speaker, and trainer. As program manager for the Alzheimer's Association, she educates communities about Alzheimer's disease and all other dementias, promotes brain health while championing awareness and encouraging proactive health practices. Welcome to Connected in Caregiving, Katrina.
Thank you, Mia. I appreciate you so much for inviting me to be a part of this wonderful event because they are our heroes, being caregivers. This is such an important thing to talk about, and we just want to recognize all the hard work they do all year long, and all the hard work that you all do at AARP too, to support the caregivers and those that are impacted by this disease. So today I will be presenting and talking about building a foundation for caregivers. We know every person that has this journey as a caregiver is going to be different. No one's experience is always exactly like others. So we're going to talk about some basic foundation things, and then feel free to add any comments, any reactions in the chat. If I share information that resonates with you, we definitely want to make sure we keep you as engaged as we move forward with today's program. So, some of the things which you all know as a caregiver, especially for those that are family caregivers, you know that it takes a shift within you to become a caregiver. It's not an easy journey. It's not a manual that's written that says this is exactly how you do it. Because every relationship, every experience is different and unique as your fingerprint. Most people who provide caregiving for their family members are also then not formally trained. So you feel so unprepared when you take on this role. So what we want to do today is we want to encourage you that there are all ways that you can kind of take control of this role. You can be prepared to be a well caregiver. There are ways that we can provide support for you through ARP and the Alzheimer's Association. But we want to make sure that as a caregiver that you also take time and look out for your own well-being. Being a caregiver is a part of your life, but it does not become your life. We want to make sure that you take care of yourself and that you also be prepared as you become a caregiver for your loved one as the disease progresses. So some of the things we know that caregivers do, we know you provide transportation, you take care of financial matters for your family members, your loved one, you prepare meals, you do a variety of things throughout the day. And so we know that you are doing the things to support your loved one so that they can have the best quality of life that they can. But also, we want to make sure you're taking care of yourself too. So don't forget about your needs. As Mia shared, we know that caregivers are all across this country. Based on our numbers, we know that there's over 1 million Americans that are living with Alzheimer's, and more than 11 million are providing unpaid care services. Right here in the state of Tennessee, we know that there is approximately 129,000 individuals that have Alzheimer's. We know that families and friends provide the majority of their care. Um, Family members are impacted differently. We do know that over 20% of caregivers are women. We also know that most caregivers that are women, they either end up taking a pay cut, reducing their work hours, or they end up leaving the workforce altogether. And although 64% of those that give care, they say it is stressful, but 92% says it's very rewarding. And so we do know you can find some joy in the journey as a caregiver. So let's talk about some things that you may experience as a caregiver that may change for you. And I can relate to this because before I came to the Alzheimer's Association, my family and I was caring for our mother. My mom is now 93, and she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's back in 2015. So I understand the juggle and the challenge of managing your life and also managing being a caregiver. So some of the things that you know is going to change is that your role is going to change. If you are a child caring for a parent, it is going to definitely be a shift in your relationships, your communication style, and your dynamics. And so you want to be able to kind of step back and assess the situation and be realistic, because as the disease progresses, you may have to take on more and more responsibilities. So I want to encourage you to go ahead and start having those conversations early. One of the things I can say that we did wrong in my family is when we got the diagnosis, everybody was so busy dealing with denial. But as soon as you get that diagnosis, that's when you want to start having those conversations. You want to start laying out a plan for your loved one. Also, we noticed that the relationships change. Um, as the disease continues to progress, you may notice that the person may become more nonverbal, or they may become more quiet. We've also seen it where sometimes your loved one may be shy to show a little, become a little more aggressive. And as the relationships change, you want to make sure that you're reaching out to your medical doctors. You want to make sure you're reaching out to the social worker at your doctor's office. You want to make sure you're reaching out to those that are providing the medical care plan so that they can be aware of those changes in your loved one. And they may be able to provide you with some support. They may be able to provide you with some tips and some suggestions so that you can manage this part of what's happening with your loved one. Also, we know the intimacy and the closeness that you have with that loved one will change. I think probably for me, the one of the hardest things was my mom and my dad have been married for 54 years. And one day my mom was sitting in her room and she was looking at pictures of my dad and she was like, "Who's this man? Why is this picture of this man in my room?" And she became so agitated. And so we had to take all the pictures of my dad out of the room. And for me, that was hard for me because my mom and dad had been married for 54 years. But because of the progression of the disease, she no longer remembered him. And so I had to really struggle with that because my mom and dad got married young. She met him when she was 16, he was 19. And so they'd been together forever. And so for me, seeing that shift in her was very challenging. And I had to acknowledge that. And that's what I want to encourage you as a caregiver. When you feel certain things or when things rise up in you, it's okay to acknowledge it. Just remember your feelings tell you what you're feeling, but they don't get to tell you what to do. So you can feel it, but it doesn't make the decision for you. Which leads us to the piece that's very important. When you're focusing on your loved one, we're focusing on person centered care. And what does that mean? Basically, what that means is you know your loved one. Um, I love there's a saying you have to separate they who from they do. You know who they are. You know this person, you've been with this person, you have seen the trials and tribulations, you have seen this person during good times and during bad times. So focus on the person and not so much on the disease. And it's easy to do that. I can remember when people will walk up to me and I would have my mom with me and they would look at me and go, "Well, how's your mom doing today?" And I'm like, "She's sitting right there," but they wouldn't acknowledge her. Or they would walk up to me and they would be talking about the disease and never mention her. So we want to make sure as we're going through this journey of being a caregiver that we don't forget to focus on the person. So, person centered care is really just, like I said, focusing on that individual. Remember what they like, what they dislike, and using that information to provide them with the best level of care that you can. For example, if you know they like to listen to music in the morning, then play some soft music in the morning when they're getting dressed, if it's going to keep them calm. If they like certain fragrances, for example, if your loved one really likes um, the smell of fresh flowers, keep fresh flowers in the room. One of the things that I discovered with my mom with her disease is that she liked having the smell of eucalyptus in her room. So I bought a diffuser. And so, in order to help her get to go to bed at night, we would put the diffuser on, have the eucalyptus flowing in her room, and it would calm her and it would help her to go to sleep at night. So, just remember to separate the disease from the person. A couple other things you want to do when it comes to patient person centered care is don't get so distracted about everything that's going on that you forget to connect with them in those special moments. Every now and then, my mom, she will have a really good day. And one of the things I started doing was recording that because I wanted to record and remember those good moments with her. Yes, I do have those moments when she's angry with me and she won't eat and she doesn't want to talk to me. But on those days when she likes to sing, my mom used to sing in the choir. And so I record her when she's singing and when she's clapping her hands and having a good day. Um, Try to make sure that your loved one continues to do meaningful things. For example, my uncle loved playing spades and dominoes, and he just got diagnosed with vascular dementia. So we try to make sure we still play hearts with him at least every 2 weeks. Make sure you focus on the relationship of the person that you're with and try to create an environment that's welcoming, that's warm, that's loving and supportive. Like I said, my mom, we've had to change out some things in her room, and because she became very sensitive to certain textures, so we put everything in her room is now soft and plush. We try to make sure she wears velour jumpsuits. You know, everything. She's very sensitive about her skin. So take what you know about your loved one and use that information to create the most supportive environment for them. This part is really about us as caregivers. The doctors and the medical team will create the care plan for your loved one, but who's going to support you? So often we focus on meeting every need of our loved one, we forget about ourselves. So I just want to share a couple of things with you because you want to make sure your support team are people that can truly support you. Sometimes we're asking for support and help from people that just can't give it to us. We have unrealistic expectations of individuals and even sometimes have unrealistic expectations of ourselves. So you want to make sure that whoever you're tapping into are the people that can truly be there for you. So one of the things you want to look at is, how can I get more done each day? Is there someone who can step in and that can help you? Is there things that you can do to reduce some of your stress? For example, do you have to go to Costco and Sam's and pick up the paper towels and the tissue paper and the soap? No. Well, maybe what it might be helpful is getting those things delivered for you or seeing if someone else can go and pick those things up for you. Think about people that you trust, and not just your family members. Who are the people that you know that you can call on and that will be there for you? It could be your neighborhood watch. Maybe you're in the Rotary Club or a civics group, or maybe you have an active faith life. Who are those people that you know that you can call on? So what you may want to do is create you a list of your support team. And your support team can help you with not only daily things, but just helping make sure you're checking in on you and making sure you're taking care of yourself. Of course, your team could include the medical doctor, your counselor, the social worker at the doctor's office, but also, again, like I said, if you're in a faith-based community or a civics group, who are the people that you can lean into? Definitely want to encourage you to have your support group, become active in a support group. It could be either online or in person. And think about all the things that you might need. One of the things I found that was helpful for me was I got a notebook and just started keeping a running list. As things would pop up, I would write them down. For example, um, our house sits on 5 acres of land with all these oak trees. Who can help get all the leaves up out the yard? Who can help with the lawn service? Who can go pick up medications for me? Who are the people that love to cook? I'm not a good, strong cook, but I have certain family members and friends that love to cook. Who can I get to come and cook and provide some services for my mom and reduce the stress for myself? So you want to think about all of those things and making sure you're taking care of yourself. So a couple of things to be mindful of is, you may get angry, you may have some denial, you may even want to withdraw from individuals. But remember, you have to make time for yourself. You cannot allow this disease to become to take over your life. It's part of your life as a caregiver, but you do want to make sure you're creating space and giving yourself grace to take care of yourself. We do know stress can have physical impact on you, such as having high blood pressure. You may start to lose your ability to sleep. You may even see a change in your appetite. Create space for you to relax. Make sure you're paying attention to your body. We have a saying that says, if you don't listen to your body when it whispers, you'll hear it when it screams. So make sure you're going to the doctor. I will say my support team reminds me to go and get my annual exams. They will call me. I have one person that helps me with my finances. She'll remind me, hey, did you pay your property taxes this year? Have you started pulling your tax receipts together? Because sometimes you just have so much going on, you don't think about those things. Be realistic and just know that you're doing your best and take breaks when you can. And always ask for help, but make sure you're asking help from the individuals that can actually help you. And as I get ready to wrap up, I just want to go over quickly the 5 C's of caregiving. One, you want to know your capacity. Being a caregiver, you're going to have to make room. There are going to be some things you may have to put on hold. There may be some things you may have to stop doing for a while, but just know your capacity. Also, competency. Learn as much as you can about the disease. Become your own best advocate. Not only have compassion for yourself, but also make sure you have compassion for your loved one. Sometimes we suffer from compassion fatigue because we give so much away. So make sure you understand the importance of having a care plan and having a care support team. And the final thing is to always communicate. Make sure that you're talking to the right person at the right time about what's happening with you as a caregiver. And make sure that the person you're communicating with is actually someone that can truly help you. Sometimes we have unrealistic expectations, especially of our family and our friends. And just remember, if this person hasn't shown up before in your life in a certain way, be mindful that they might not show up this time. And it's okay if they can't, because sometimes people don't have the capacity to be there for you. Just want to share a few resources with you. At the Alzheimer's Association, we're committed to finding a way to end Alzheimer's and other dementias. We offer services such as care and support, advocacy, education, and research. And then we also focus on reaching out to those underrepresented communities. If there's anything that we can do for you, we want to encourage you to reach out to us. We have a national hotline where someone's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That number is 1-800-272-3900. Or you can reach out on our website at alz.org, where we have online tools that you can use as a caregiver. And finally, we have a new app that's called My ALZ Journey, where you can actually connect with other individuals online and track your journey as you deal with this disease. And at the Alzheimer's Association, we are here to support you and to give you all the help that we can. And I hope I've said something today that will support you on your journey as being a caregiver. And remember, there is joy in the journey. We just got to make sure we give ourselves the grace and the space that we need. Thank you, guys. Are there any questions in the chat?
Well, Katrina, thank you so much for sharing your story, and also some really great information with a lot of love and a lot of humor. Thank you so much. It was great information. Now, I'd like to introduce someone who is no stranger to the aging community or caregiving, and she is a wonderful partner in this work. Grace Smith is the executive director of Age Well Middle Tennessee, formerly known as the Council on Aging. And she was also a caregiver in support of her mother and for her father, who suffered from dementia. Age Well Middle Tennessee is a nonprofit that serves as a trusted community resource, a champion for older adults and family caregivers, and a catalyst for solutions to critical unmet needs. Grace and the Age Well organization have been great partners to AARP Tennessee for many, many years, and I'm so glad she's here with us today. Thanks for joining us, Grace.
Thank you, Mia. I'm happy to be here.
So let's start here. Can you share a little bit about your caregiving experience and how you came to be a caregiver?
I'm happy to. So, I am the oldest of three daughters, and my parents were married for 60 years. I am the only daughter that lives in Nashville. So, the caregiving duties fell to me because mom and dad live here and I'm the only one nearby. Now, thankfully, my sisters are very supportive. And so I'm grateful for that. This is a picture of me and my dad. My father was in the furniture business for most of his career. Every time I moved to a house, dad would draw me a floor plan of where every piece of furniture should go. And I would give that to the movers, and they said, no one ever does this. But that was his way of helping, and he was really good at it. In 2018, when he was in his mid 70s, he was still working at a furniture store, but they asked him to retire because they had started noticing some changes. He was having difficulty on the computer. We don't really know the full extent of what they were observing at work, but they asked him to retire. And so at the end of 2018, he retired and was at home full time with my mother. That's when she started noticing changes too. He was repeating the same questions to her, he was misplacing things around the house. And he went to a friend's house and was having trouble getting oriented in their house. That was so unusual for him, the spatial orientation problems that he started showing. So that led mom to take him to the doctor. And at age 76, he was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. They started giving him B12 injections, and that seemed to help for a while. But a year later, things were getting worse. So mom took him to Vanderbilt. He had a series of neuropsychological testing, and some brain scans, and that revealed probable Alzheimer's disease. So mom, again, became his primary caregiver. And I want to show you this picture. This was from my son's wedding a year ago, August. And this really epitomizes my family and my dad. So, I mean, we're dressed up, of course. It was my son's wedding, but you can tell in that picture with my son, dad had to be escorted down the aisle with my mom. Otherwise, he probably would have gotten lost or stopped to chat with people along the way. He loved being part of family events, and he loves to dance. And his favorite song was Proud Mary. So that's dad with his sister Mickey in the middle of the dance floor. We danced the night away. And honestly, I will cherish that memory forever. because it really captured who he was and his love for cutting the rug.
I love that. Well, tell me, what do you wish you knew before you started your caregiving journey?
You know, Mia, I thought I knew a lot, having worked in the aging services space for so many years. But it's not until you're caring for a parent or a loved one that you realize there are things you really don't know. Like, I didn't know enough about choosing a memory care community, which ones were better than others, which ones would be the best fit for my dad when it came to that point. I didn't know about navigating hospitals and discharge planning. And so there were things along the way that suddenly I felt very out of sorts in not feeling like I had enough knowledge and experience to help my mother navigate. The other thing I didn't know, and Katrina mentioned this, is I did not anticipate how much anticipatory grief I would feel as I watched my father decline. So there was this constant tug of war of wanting to be in the moment with him and enjoy whatever we were doing or just sitting together in the same room. But when I left those visits, there was a lot of grieving going on in my heart for the fact that he wasn't the dad that he had always been. So you have to give yourself the space to feel that. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little choked up, but there's a
Just
lot of
fine.
grieving that goes on when you're seeing someone you love decline because of a disease like Alzheimer's.
Yeah. Well, how long were you a caregiver or in support of your mom as she was a caregiver for your father?
Yeah, as I look back, it really was about 7 years from when dad started having problems that were interfering with daily life to the point where he died this past August. So it was about 7 years, and I'm continuing to care for my mom, who is 82.
Hmm. Hmm. So in that 7 years, I'm sure that you had to figure out that dance, that balance with the demands of work and family and caregiving. How did you do that?
I did the best I could, really. And I'm thankful that I have wonderful coworkers who were very supportive of me, who were good sounding boards when I needed to talk with about what was going on with mom and dad. And they filled in for me when I needed to be away from the office. So I can't say enough if you are working about the importance of having a supportive employer and supportive coworkers. Um, I also found that I tried to take care of myself physically, mentally, and spiritually. So, exercise is my stress reliever. I would come home and work out, and that just gave me the energy and relieved the stress. Prayer and daily devotionals got me through a lot. And just being able to talk to friends and family and coworkers. I think what Katrina said is so true. You need that support team around you to help you as a caregiver while you're helping your loved one. And my two sisters were very supportive, and they took turns coming from Georgia to Nashville to give me weekends off. And they said, Grace, we don't want you to do anything for mom or dad this weekend. This is your weekend to do whatever you need to do for yourself. And that was a gift.
Yeah, self-care is so important
Mm.
as a caregiver. When you think about some of the other resources that helped you through this journey, what resources did you find helpful?
So there are a lot of resources that are out there. Some of the ones that I found helpful were, of course, AgeWell has a directory of services. So there was a lot of good information there. But one book that I found extremely helpful was called The 36-Hour Day. This is such a helpful book for whatever you're dealing with Alzheimer's. You don't read it cover to cover, but you can look up if you're dealing with sundowning or your parents shouldn't be driving anymore. You can look up that section of the book and get wonderful tips for whatever you're dealing with. I found that Also, I wanted to show you all this picture. This was my dad coming to spend some time on the weekend at my house with my cat and dog. And one of the things I learned from a Vanderbilt nurse is there are these companion pets. They're robotic pets. So when I noticed my dad really liked my cat, when he would come over, I looked up Joy for All is the name of the company that provides these robotic pets. And so for Christmas that year, I gave my dad this cat, and it purrs, it murmurs, it would roll back and as he brushed it like a cat would do, and he named it Buddy. So that became a wonderful resource for dad, particularly if he got agitated or he needed to calm down. Mom would give him Buddy, and Buddy was a great resource. Um, the Alzheimer's Association is a wonderful resource, Alzheimer's Tennessee. The list goes on, and I'll talk a little bit later about resources that Age Well offers. But I also found, so as dad's Alzheimer's progressed, mom needed more of a break. So he started going to the 50 Forward Adult Day program several days a week. He loved it and they loved him. So dad would go, he would eat breakfast and lunch. They would do activities, some exercise, they would play games. He loved to do art. And so that was a part of their programming. And that day program was a godsend for my mother to give her time off to take care of herself and just rest during the week. So that was another tremendous resource. And as his Alzheimer's progressed, dad needed more care than mom could provide. So they had long-term care insurance. So mom was able to move him to a memory care residence. This is a picture of him when he moved to that residence. It was challenging in many ways, but it was the relief that she needed, and we did our best to help dad adjust.
Yeah. Katrina talked about some of the good days and not so great days that she had with her mom. And I think as caregivers, we know that caregiving is never the same 2 days in a row. So, how did your role and caregiving duties change over time?
Well, it really changed in terms of what was going on with dad, and what mom needed in terms of support. So initially, it was more, um, going to visit mom and dad and just support her, calling her, being a sounding board when she needed to vent. Then it came to be more of helping her figure out what's an option to give her a break and looking into some of the adult day programs that were available and helping her find one that was convenient, that would be good for dad. And so we found the 50 Forward Day program. Over time, she needed more emotional support from me and needed to share some of the difficult things she was feeling. So I tried to be a good listener. Like I said, she wanted me to take him for several hours on the weekends. And so I would have dad over and we would maybe watch a Vanderbilt football game because he went to Vanderbilt, or I would ask him to help me with things around the house, fixing up, decorating a table or polishing a table because he was in the furniture business and he loved to help me do things around my house. So, and then time came, like I said, for him to move to memory care. And so I was helping mom the best I could figure out where should he move and make arrangements for that, and then deal with issues that came up after he moved. Just working with the care team, trying to help them understand dad and what he needed and what he liked and didn't like. Because even though your loved one may move to a residential care setting, you still have to be there on a regular basis and help the staff know how best to care for your loved one.
Right. We have a lot of folks online today who made the time to participate, and we're so happy that they're here. How can we reach folks who feel overwhelmed and can't find 10 minutes for themselves?
That is a great question. And I know that caregiving does feel overwhelming. I saw that with my mother, and I've talked to plenty of caregivers through the years who definitely feel overwhelmed and burned out. I think it's really important for us as neighbors and family and friends to be in touch with anyone that we know is caregiving, to ask how they're doing and to offer whatever assistance we can. Running to bringing groceries over or coming over for a couple hours so the caregiver can leave and run errands or go do something that they want to do. Um, one of the things I learned when I was a social worker working at another nonprofit and facilitating a caregiver support group for spouses, they used to say to each other, and this was such a good mantra: if I don't take care of me, I can't take care of you, speaking of their spouse. And they would remind themselves of that at every meeting we had. And so I think that is such important advice because you can't do it alone and you need to ask for help. Asking for help doesn't mean you're weak. It means you are realizing that you need to take care of yourself in the process and that you need a team supporting you as you care for your loved one, particularly with caring for someone with dementia.
Yes. And you mentioned a little bit about that team support. Can you share with our audience about where they can find some of that support? You mentioned the caregiving group a minute ago, but are there other places where they can find the support?
There are so many resources out there that we at Age Well, and I know at AARP, you all do the same. We want caregivers to know what's available. So resources, they're online resources that AARP offers. Age Well offers our directory of services across 13 counties in Middle Tennessee. It's free at every public library. We also have an online directory for people looking for resources. If you're outside of Middle Tennessee, there's the Alzheimer's Association, and also the Elder Care Locator is a wonderful nationwide service. There is personal support and navigation assistance. One of the things we found from caregivers when we handed them our directory is they would say, "This book is great, but I don't even know where to start. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what I need, and I don't know what is out there." So we created a program called Elder Care Coach to give caregivers a free grant-funded elder care coach consultation with a geriatric care professional who can listen to what's going on in their situation and then give them some really personal advice about what resources and what settings would be most appropriate for their loved one, and then connect them to those resources. So we welcome caregivers calling Age Well, going to eldercarecoach.org, scheduling a personal consultation. It's confidential, and like I said, we'll really be focused on you and your situation. There are other organizations out there. The Tennessee Caregiver Coalition offers funding and respite vouchers to give caregivers some time off. There's the guide program that is now available through many providers that actually pays for caregivers to get time off, pays for respite care. So that's another new resource that's new this year. Day programs, Alzheimer's Tennessee and Mental Health America are some other good nonprofits here in our area. And like I said, adult day programs are really important for giving caregivers a break. The last resource I'll mention are geriatric care managers. You hire a geriatric care manager, but they have wonderful expertise and can help you navigate your options as well, particularly if you're trying to make a decision about moving a loved one to residential care, or you're having a lot of issues navigating hospital care, end of life care. Geriatric care managers, that's a resource that we brought in near the end of my dad's life. And it was like having a nurse and a care manager on your team, just right there with you, looking out for your loved one's best interest and advising mom and I in the process. It was a wonderful resource that we took advantage of.
That's great. Grace, if you had to do it all over again, what would you have what would you have done differently from the beginning?
That's a really great question. I think I've a lot of lessons learned. I definitely would have sought out professional advice earlier. I think when it came time that mom couldn't care for dad anymore at home, at that point, I really wish I had reached out to the geriatric care managers and brought them in to do an assessment of dad and to find out from mom like what she was looking for in a memory care for them to help guide us on the best residential care for his needs, because we ended up moving him to the memory care where they were living in their retirement community, and it was not a good fit at all. Dad was miserable. This is actually a picture of him in that first memory care. He was very emotional. He became very tearful. That was very upsetting to us. And the reason was the majority of the other residents at the time were much further advanced than he was in their Alzheimer's. And that was very hard for dad because he was still able to carry on a conversation and do more activities. And he would say, "Get me out of here. Get me out of here." And so we ended up moving him to a second memory care that was better. It was a better setting for him because there were more people that were higher functioning like he was. And and that's what he needed. So again, I feel like if we had brought in some professional guidance on the front end, we could have avoided the first move that wasn't a good fit. And I honestly, I didn't know. I was learning in the process. And you need to talk to people that are in and out of those residential care or adult day programs all the time to find out what they're really like. So don't hesitate to seek out professional advice. Find the support you need, like Katrina said, build a support network, give yourself a lot of space and grace for the grieving. And I mentioned that earlier. Also, I think I didn't know a lot about hospitals and discharge planning and the fact that they don't do enough in the discharge assessment, and you really have to advocate for your loved one. Um, that happened with my dad near the end. I'm going to show you this picture. This was my sister with my dad on Father's Day this past June. That's on the left. And on the right, 2 weeks later, my dad was in the hospital for gout in his finger. He was discharged without a thorough assessment. They should have done a PT evaluation. I didn't know we could have asked for that, and I wish I had known that because after being in bed for several days and on steroid treatments that made him weak, he couldn't walk. It took three
Mm.
people to get him in a wheelchair, and they sent him back to his memory care residence, and they weren't equipped to care for him. So within 2 hours, he stood up and no one was watching, and he fell and broke his hip and ended up back in the hospital the same day he was discharged. That never should have happened. And I wish I had known to be there and be more involved in the discharge planning process, but I just trusted the hospital to know what to do and know what he needed and to coordinate with the memory care. And let me tell you, folks, that doesn't happen. You have to be there and you have to be an advocate to make sure things happen, and you have to ask questions. So the picture on the right is my dad when he was in the rehab center after he had a partial hip replacement. Dad was never able to walk again. And 5 weeks after falling and breaking his hip, he passed away. So I will say to you, it is so important to do everything you can to prevent falls. And like I said, to be there in the hospital, advocating for your loved one, asking for a PT evaluation, making sure the discharge plan is thorough and that it truly provides your loved one with the support they need in whatever setting that might be when they leave the hospital. there's a lot I learned the hard way, and it was very hard for our family um, going through all this in his last 5 weeks of life.
Yes, well, I am so thankful that you're sharing those lessons with our audience today. As I mentioned, we have people from across the country who have taken the time to join us today, but I want to talk specifically about Middle Tennessee. I know that you work with Age Well Middle Tennessee. Can you just speak a little bit about how Age Well can help folks navigate their caregiving experience?
Mia, thank you for that. And, Age Well is a trusted resource for older adults and caregivers in Middle Tennessee. We've been that resource for 40 years. And we are very dedicated to supporting family caregivers. And so if you are caring for a loved one, we invite you to call us, call our helpline, and we would love to schedule an elder care coach consultation for you. You can talk with one of our master's level social workers who can listen to what's going on in your situation and give you some advice as you figure out what your best options are, and then follow up and send you the resources that you need for whatever it is, whether it's adult day programs, residential care, in home care, whatever it is that's going on. The Elder Care Coach program is here to support family caregivers. And even if you live outside of Middle Tennessee, you can call us. You can still have one of those Elder Care Coach consultations, and we will help you find the resources wherever you or your loved one is living. It's our privilege to support family caregivers, and we hope that you will give us a call. It's agewelltn.org is our website. And I believe you all are going to share some of those resources too, Mia, with the
Yes.
people that are participating today. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And Grace, thank you. Thank you for caring for your father with love as you did. And thank you for sharing your story with all of us today so we could learn more about the caregiving journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mia.
Well, that wraps up our workshop today and our conversation about caring for a loved one with dementia. Thanks to our guests, Katrina Kimball and Grace Smith, for sharing with us today. I hope you found this as meaningful as I did. Please check out the resources we have available and mark your calendars to join us next Monday when we discuss caregiving for veterans. Thanks so much for getting connected with caregiving. Have a great day.